Welcome back to the deep dive. I actually want to start today by asking you to do something for me.
Oh, a little interactive homework right at the top of the show.
Exactly. I want you to look away from your phone or the road or, whatever you're doing right now. Just look at the world around you.
Okay, we'll
Look
figure
at
it.
the traffic, the clouds, maybe the coffee cup on your desk or the person sitting across from you on the train.
All right, just a pretty standard Tuesday morning
It
scene.
looks solid, right? It looks totally real. It looks like it's happening outside of you. But here is the question that is going to frame our entire conversation today.
Lay it on us.
What if none of that is actually, out there? What if that entire scene, the traffic, the weather, your annoying coworker, is actually a movie being projected from inside your own skull?
Wow. Okay, that is a very heavy way to start.
Well,
You're basically asking if we're living in the Matrix.
in a way, yeah. But not a computer simulation run by machines, a biological simulation run by you. We are looking at a stack of documents today that is, honestly, a little mind-bending.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
It attempts to synthesize three fields that usually do not talk to each other at all: quantum physics, hard-nosed neuroscience, and spiritual evolution.
And that is a really dangerous cocktail if you don't mix it right. Because usually when you get physics and spirituality in the same room, things get, well, they get vague really fast.
Exactly. It gets very woo-woo. But what hooked me on this material is that it tries to be incredibly specific.
Right.
It's not just saying, oh, think positive thoughts. It's arguing that we are mechanically, biologically, and physically projecting our reality. And if that's true, we've been living our lives completely backwards.
It's a massive inversion of the status quo. The core thesis here is that humanity is in the middle of a massive evolutionary jump. We are moving from a survival-based consciousness, what the source material calls the animal human, into a creator-based consciousness, which they refer to as the God human.
Not human. I mean, that is a loaded term. It sounds a bit, I don't know, egomaniacal, doesn't it? Like we're trying to say we're all powerful deities.
I think the terminology is meant to be provocative. It's
Yeah.
not about ego in the sense of, I am better than you. It's really about capability.
Okay, how so?
Well, the animal human is reactive. It just responds to the environment. The God human is creative. It generates the environment. And the source grounds this not in theology, but in actual mechanisms. Neuronal firing, DNA mutation, quantum wave functions.
Right. So before we get into the mechanics of how to mutate our DNA, which sounds like X-Men stuff, you need to set the stage. The source puts a lot of emphasis on the timing of this shift. Like, why now?
Yeah, this isn't just a random self-help trend. The material discusses a major cosmic cycle that is currently concluding. They mentioned a 26,000-year cycle.
26,000 years. That's a very specific number. I feel like I've heard that before in relation to astronomy.
You have. It's known as the precession of the equinoxes.
Right.
Basically, the Earth wobbles on its axis like a spinning top. It takes roughly 26,000 years to make one full wobble. Many ancient traditions, like the Mayan calendar, tracked this cycle obsessively.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and the idea found in these documents is that we're at the end of one of these massive cosmic days and the beginning of a new one.
They call it the golden age, right?
Yes. But here is the nuance that I really appreciated. Usually when we talk about entering a new era or evolving, we think about learning.
Sure.
Think, okay, humans need to learn more, discover more tech, accumulate more knowledge.
Right. We need to get smarter to evolve.
But this material argues the exact opposite. It says the shift isn't about learning at all. It's about remembering.
Remembering what, though?
Remembering an identity we forgot. The premise is that we are already these incredibly powerful, multidimensional beings. But to experience this dense, physical 3D reality, we had to essentially fall asleep. We had to forget our power just to play the game of being limited humans.
So it's like we're playing a video game, and we got so immersed in the character that we completely forgot we're actually the player holding the controller.
That is the perfect analogy. The Golden Age isn't about your character getting a new sword or leveling up. It's about the player waking up and realizing, wait a minute, I can reprogram the game itself.
Okay, that's a cool metaphor, but metaphors are easy. I want to get into the physics. The source uses quantum mechanics to justify this idea that we aren't just characters. How does that actually work?
Well, we have to go back to high school physics for a second, and then we have to break it.
I am ready. Break it.
Let's start with the atom, the fundamental building block of you, me, the table, the air. We tend to think of atoms as little solar systems.
Right. A nucleus in the middle and electrons orbiting around it like planets. Solid stuff.
Exactly, like marbles buzzing around a basketball.
Oh.
But that model is totally misleading.
Why?
Because if the nucleus of an atom were the size of a basketball, the electrons wouldn't be right next to it. They would be miles and miles away.
And everything in between?
Empty space.
Wow.
99.999% empty space. So the very first argument is that the solid world is an illusion. You are mostly void.
Okay, that's trippy, but I'm with you.
But then, if you smash those particles, the protons, the neutrons, and look at what they're actually made of, you get down to quarks. And the source highlights that at that subatomic level, the rules of reality break down completely.
In what way?
These particles move faster than light. They don't adhere to time or space.
Wait, faster than light? I thought Einstein said that was completely impossible.
In the classical physical universe, yes. But in the quantum realm locality, the idea that a thing is in one specific place at one specific time just doesn't hold up. And this leads us to the double-slit experiment, which is incredibly crucial to understanding this whole God-human concept.
I have heard of this experiment, but walk us through it. Why is it so important?
Okay, so imagine you have a wall with two vertical slits cut into it, and you are firing marbles at the wall.
Got it.
Some marbles go through the left slit, some go through the right slit. On the back wall behind the slits, you're going to get two bands of marks where the marbles hit. Simple.
Right. Solid matter acts like solid matter.
Now imagine you shrink those marbles down to electrons or photons. You fire them at the slits. You'd expect two bands on the back wall, just like the marbles.
Makes sense.
But you don't get that. You get an interference pattern, a whole series of many bands across the back wall. It looks exactly like what happens when two waves of water crash into each other.
So the electron isn't a particle, it's a wave.
It acts like a wave. It goes through both slits at the exact same time and interferes with itself.
That's insane.
It is. But here is the kicker. And this is the part that literally still keeps physicists up at night. If you put a camera, a detector, right next to the slits to see which one the electron actually goes through.
Like, to spy on it.
Exactly. To observe it. The moment you observe it, the electron stops acting like a wave. It snaps back into being a particle. It goes through only one slit, and you get the two bands on the back wall again.
Wait, just because we looked at it?
Just because it was observed. The act of observation collapsed the wave function. It forced the wave to become a specific reality, the particle.
Okay, so the chair I'm sitting on is only a solid chair because I am actively observing it. If I leave the room, is it just a wave of potential?
Quantum physicists would argue endlessly about the scale of that effect, but the source material takes this principle and applies it directly to identity.
Okay.
It says, if the chair is a wave until observed, then you, the observer, must also be comprised of waves.
Whoa, okay, so I'm not just this, meat suit sitting here.
You are that is the particle version of you. But you also exist as a wave. Energy, consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it. The source argues we exist in a dual state. And just like the subatomic particle, your wave nature is not bound by time or space. It is everywhere at once.
This is the aha moment the text refers to, isn't it? We feel so small and limited because we identify only with the particle, the body, but the God-human identifies with the wave.
Precisely. And if you are the wave, you are the one collapsing the reality. You aren't just sitting in the theater watching the movie. Your observation is making the movie.
Hold on, I need to push back on this a little bit, because even if I accept that I'm a wave on some deep spiritual level, I still feel very solid. Like if I stub my toe, it hurts. I can't just wave myself through a brick wall.
And that is a totally fair point. We can't just stay in the quantum clouds and ignore our physical experience. We have to explain why the illusion of solidity is so convincing. And this is exactly where the material pivots from physics to neuroscience. It introduces the concept of the biological robot.
I have to say, being called a biological robot is slightly insulting. We pride ourselves on free will, don't we?
We absolutely do. But the source challenges that entirely. It asks, do you really have free will, or are you just running scripts?
Scripts, like a computer.
Neural pathways. Think about your morning routine today. Did you consciously decide every single movement you made? Did you decide to feel annoyed when the alarm went off, or did that feeling just happen?
It just happened. It was totally automatic.
That is the robot. The source argues that the human body is essentially a piece of biological hardware, and the brain. The brain is the projector.
Let's unpack this movie theater analogy, because I think this is probably the clearest visual in the whole deep dive.
It really is. So normally we think of our eyes as cameras or windows. We open our eyelids, light comes in from the outside world, hits our retina, and the brain processes the image. We assume the world is out there, and we are just witnessing it.
Right. That's just how vision works.
The source says no. That is completely backwards. The brain is the projector. The neurons firing inside your skull are the film reel. And your eyes, they're the lens projecting the image out.
That is trippy. So I'm not seeing the room, I'm projecting the room.
You are seeing a reflection of your internal state. They use the metaphor of a tulle curtain, a very thin, semi-transparent fabric. When you look at the world, you think you're seeing reality, but you're actually seeing your own neural map projected onto this curtain.
So if the world looks ugly to me, like if everyone seems angry, if everything is going wrong, that's not because the world is objectively bad. It's because I have a bad film reel loaded in the projector.
Exactly. And this brilliantly explains why we get stuck in patterns. The source discusses the feedback loop. Let's say you had a really difficult or traumatic childhood.
Which definitely leaves a mark.
Biologically, it leaves a neural pathway. We know that neurons that fire together wire together. So you have this hardwired connection in your brain that says, people will abandon me, or money is hard to get, or whatever it is. That is your film reel. Because it's wired, the projector just keeps playing that movie.
So you get a new job, but the boss treats you just like your dad did. Or you get a new partner, but the relationship falls apart in the exact same way as the last one.
Yes. And usually, what do we do in those situations? We blame the boss. We blame the partner. We blame the screen.
We stand up in the middle of the movie theater and scream at the screen, change the ending.
Which is insane, right? Because the screen is just white fabric reflecting light. You can scream at it all day long, but the movie will not change, but you go up to the projection booth, your brain, and physically splice the film.
This is what they mean by the biological robot. We are robots executing a program we wrote years ago, usually based on fear or trauma. And until we realize we are the projectionist, we're just victims of our own rerun.
That is the crux of the shift. The animal human reacts to the screen. The God human changes the real.
Okay, so let's talk about actually changing the real, because this is where people usually get stuck. They try positive thinking. They stand in front of the mirror and say, I am rich, and then they check their bank account and they are still broke. Why doesn't that work?
Because of a fascinating mechanism the source calls reverse fluctuation.
Reverse fluctuation. It sounds like a generic sci-fi problem on Star Trek. Captain, the shields are in reverse fluctuation.
It does. But the physics of it is actually quite intuitive once you break it down. It explains exactly why wanting something often creates the exact opposite result.
Give me an example of how that works.
Think about a time you really desperately wanted something, maybe a specific person to text you back.
Oh God, yes. You just stare at the phone. You're practically vibrating with anxiety.
Right, but what is the underlying signal you are broadcasting in that moment? Is it, I have a text?
No, it's I don't have a text. Why aren't they texting me?
Exactly. The dominant vibration is lack. You are focusing purely on the absence of the thing. And because the universe or your neural projector is a feedback loop, it amplifies what you are focusing on.
So the harder I want, the more I emphasize the not having. It's like a Chinese finger trap. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets.
That is a perfect metaphor. That is reverse fluctuation. It creates a downward wave that pushes the object of your desire further and further away.
The source gave a really specific story about the Barcelona example. I think this will resonate with a lot of people listening.
Yes. So imagine a person who is totally obsessed with going to Barcelona. It's their ultimate dream.
Yeah.
They are constantly saying, I want to go to Spain. I hate that I'm not in Spain right now. They are deeply in that reverse fluctuation state of lack.
And then the universe throws them a curveball.
Right. They turn on the TV.
Yeah.
And there's a movie set in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Or they go to lunch and their coworker says, guess what? I just booked a 2-week trip to Barcelona.
Now, be honest. How does the average person react to that?
Oh, jealousy, envy, It's not fair. Why her and not me?
We feel like the universe is just taunting us.
Right. And that reaction, that intense jealousy, locks the door. It completely confirms the lack state. But the source offers a totally different interpretation of that moment. They say the manifestation actually worked.
Wait, how did it work? I'm still stuck in my cubicle and she's eating tapas.
It worked because you successfully attracted the vibration of Barcelona into your reality. It showed up on your screen. It just happened to show up through the extra in your movie, your coworker, rather than the main character yet.
Oh, I see. Because if everyone is a projection of me, then a part of me is going to Barcelona.
Exactly. That is the massive paradigm shift. If it appears in your movie, it means the code is already in your field. It is getting closer. It's like seeing the trailer for the movie before the feature presentation starts.
So the God-human response shouldn't be jealousy. It should be.
Excitement? It's showing up. That means I'm next. They call this correct fluctuation. You have to collapse the timeline by realizing there's actually no separation between you and the coworker. Her success is literally evidence of your upcoming success.
That is incredibly hard to do when you're in the thick of it, though. It requires dropping the ego completely.
It does. It requires a lot of discipline, but the alternative is staying stuck in the finger trap.
Let's talk about the heavy lifting required to get there. Because to really change the real, we have to deal with the past. And the source has a very, I would say, controversial take on the past.
They argue that the past simply does not exist.
Which, again, as a skeptic, I have to say, I have scars on my knees from childhood. I have photos. I have memories. The past definitely happened.
It happened, yes. But where does it exist right now?
In my memory.
And what is a memory, biologically speaking?
I mean, a bunch of neurons firing in a pattern.
Exactly. It is a frozen neural circuit. The event itself is completely gone. It is dust. But because you keep refiring those exact same neurons, telling the story of the terrible divorce, reliving the embarrassment of that failure, you keep the past alive in the present. You are literally carrying dead energy.
They describe this visualization of the sac. And I actually tried this, and it's surprisingly visceral.
It's a very powerful somatic exercise. We carry our past traumas like a heavy sack on our backs. We get so used to the weight that we forget it's even there. The instruction is to close your eyes and really feel that weight. Feel the straps physically digging into your shoulders. Put all your stories, the bad ex, the unfair boss, the mistakes, put them all into that sack.
And then you decide to just drop it.
You visualize unhooking the straps and letting it hit the ground behind you.
The source claims people literally feel a physical thud when they do this.
They do. Their shoulders drop, their breathing completely changes. And this isn't magic. It is neuroscience. It's the neuroscience of decision. When you vividly visualize dropping the burden, you are signaling to your brain that you are no longer going to energize those old neural pathways. You are actively breaking the circuit. You are reclaiming the biological energy that was being used to keep the past alive.
But this leads us to what is probably the hardest part of the document, the part that I think will definitely make some listeners angry.
Radical responsibility.
Yeah, because if I am the projector and the world is the screen, that means I am responsible for everything on the screen.
Everything.
My abusive boss.
You projected that dynamic.
The traffic jam that made me late this morning.
Your internal chaos reflected back at you.
Okay, but what about the big stuff? What about war? What about a global pandemic? Are you telling me that I, just sitting in my living room, caused a war? That feels incredibly solipsistic. It feels like victim blaming on a massive global scale.
I am really glad you brought that up, because that is by far the most common objection to this kind of material. And it's so important to distinguish between fault and resonance. The source isn't saying you personally flew the planes or fired the guns or started the war, but it is arguing that we participate in a collective projection.
Collective projection? How does that work?
Think of it like a massive multiplayer online game. We are all projecting onto the exact same server. If the collective consciousness is filled with fear, conflict, and separation, the screen of the world will show war. By watching the news and feeling helplessly angry, we are feeding that frequency. We are voting for that reality.
So feeling guilty or angry about the state of the world just adds more pollution to the stream.
Exactly. The argument is that you cannot help the world by being devastated by it. You help the world by clearing your own projector.
It's the put your own oxygen mask on first theory, but for reality creation.
Right. If you want peace in the world, you have to ruthlessly eliminate conflict from your own internal film reel. As long as you are fighting with your neighbor or judging your mother-in-law, you are contributing to the frequency of war.
Oof. That hits home. It's so easy to post world peace on social media. It's incredibly hard to actually be peaceful when someone cuts you off in traffic.
That is the work. That is the God-human standard. It's not meant to be easy.
I'm the only one in the theater. That line is going to stick with me. Let's pivot to something that feels a bit more tangible, though. Health. Because the source makes some claims about DNA and healing that are, well, miraculous.
They are. And again, they ground it entirely in brain structure. They contrast the neocortex with the God mind.
Okay, brain anatomy time. The neocortex is the big, wrinkly outside part, right? The part that makes us smart.
Yes. It's the evolutionarily newest part of the human brain. It handles logic, language, reasoning, and strategy. It's brilliant, but it is severely limited. The source calls it the animal-human tool because it solely relies on past data.
It's a statistics machine.
Exactly. If you get a terrifying medical diagnosis, the neocortex immediately asks, what are the survival rates? What do the doctors say? How does this usually end? It looks at the screen of the past to predict the future.
Statistics say this disease is incurable.
Right. And because the neocortex deeply believes the statistics, it signals the body to prepare for decline. The God mind, however, completely bypasses logic. It operates on pure knowing and imagination.
So how do we actually use this for healing? They describe something called the frontal lobe technique.
This is a very specific visualization protocol. The source suggests utilizing the frontal lobe, which is the area right behind your forehead, as a literal screen.
Okay, so I close my eyes. What do I put on the screen?
You visualize the absolute healthiest version of yourself. And I don't mean just a static picture. You need a full movie. See yourself running and actually feel the wind. See yourself laughing and feel the joy. See your cells glowing.
And here is where I need the biology. Because visualizing is nice, but how does that actually shrink a tumor?
It triggers a biological cascade. And this is well documented in science. When you visualize something vividly, the brain, specifically the hypothalamus, doesn't know the difference between that internal visualization and external reality.
We see this with Olympic athletes, right? They visualize the race, and their muscles microfire.
Exactly. So when you hold this image of perfect health, the hypothalamus kicks into high gear. It signals the pituitary gland. They start pumping out neuropeptides, which are chemical messengers.
Instead of stress hormones like cortisol.
Right. Instead of a fight-or-flight cocktail, you get a growth and repair cocktail. Dopamine, oxytocin, specific healing factors. These chemicals travel through the bloodstream, bind to receptors on your cells, and can literally change gene expression.
Epigenetics.
Yes, you are turning specific genes on or off based on the chemical environment you are creating with your mind. The force claims this exact signal can mutate DNA and restructure cells to perfectly match the image.
So the miracle is really just the body following a new set of instructions.
Precisely. And this is why they completely reframe the placebo effect. Usually, we think of the placebo effect as fake medicine. Oh, he didn't really heal, it was just the placebo.
Right, it's all in your head?
The source says yes. It is in your head. That's the entire point. The placebo effect is just the neocortex taking a screenshot of a belief this new pill will cure me and executing that program biologically. It is the ultimate proof that the mind drives the body.
But there is a trap here, what they call the how trap.
This is the biggest hurdle for the neocortex. The moment you start this visualization, the neocortex will jump in and ask, but how is this going to work? You aren't taking medicine. This is silly.
They're just imagining things. Stop it.
And the very moment you engage with that doubt, you break the signal. You stop the production of those healing peptides and go right back to pumping cortisol. You have to value the internal reality, the screenshot, more than the external diagnosis.
That requires a level of mental discipline that most of us just aren't used to.
It's mental weightlifting. It takes daily practice.
Well, speaking of practice, let's get to the toolkit. We've covered the theory, the quantum waves, the projector, the DNA. But how do we live this way on a random Tuesday when the coffee spills and the kids are screaming?
The source offers some great practical pop-up blockers for the mind. My personal favorite is the cancel method.
How does that one work?
We all have intrusive negative thoughts. I'm going to get sick. I'm broke. This presentation is going to be a disaster. The source says, when that thought intrudes, don't fight it. Just stop and ask, who does this thought actually belong to?
Because it might not be yours.
It's almost certainly not yours. It is likely a programmed code from society, the evening news, your parents, or that collective fear we talked about earlier.
So you basically identify it as spam.
And then you verbally or mentally say, cancel, or I return this to its source. You consciously refuse to let that thought complete its neural circuit. You do not let it become a peptide.
It's like swiping left on a bad thought.
Exactly. Another crucial tool is understanding language codes. This is a big one. The subconscious mind thinks entirely in images, not in negatives.
Ah, the classic example. Don't think of a white cat.
And immediately, what do you see?
A giant white cat.
Right. So when you walk around saying, I don't want to be sick, what image is your projector loading?
Sickness.
When you say, I really hope I don't run out of money, what image are you focusing on?
An empty bank account.
You are literally commanding your biological robot to manifest the exact thing you fear most.
So we need to rephrase everything into the positive affirmative.
Relentlessly. Stop saying, I don't want to be fat. Start saying, I am fit. Stop saying, no problem. Say, it's a pleasure.
Oh man, no problem is such a deeply ingrained habit.
It implies there was a problem to begin with. We have to clean up the code. I am wealthy. I am healthy. I am safe. Give the projector the image you want, not the one you're desperately trying to avoid.
That makes so much sense. One last tool, and I think this relates back to the thud of the sack, the power of decision.
Yes. They capitalize decision for a reason. They explain that a true decision is actually a high-voltage neural connection.
High voltage, what does that mean in the brain?
Think about a time you really truly changed your life. Usually it wasn't a gradual, wishy-washy process. It was a single moment.
Yeah.
You hit rock bottom, or you just got completely fed up and you said, that's it, I'm done.
The rocket launch moment, like I am quitting smoking right now.
That moment
Yeah.
creates a neural pathway so strong and sudden high voltage that it overrides the old habits instantly. The source says we can harness this. We don't have to wait for a crisis to hit rock bottom. We can generate that intensity intentionally.
We can decide.
If you put enough emotional charge behind it, yes, you can rewire the brain in an instant.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the empty space in atoms to the film reel in our brains to the peptides in our blood.
It is a lot of data to take in.
If you had to boil this entire deep dive down this shift from animal to God-human, what is the absolute bottom line?
The bottom line is that the world is not happening to you. It is happening from you.
We are moving from being victims of the screen to directors of the movie.
Yes, the external world is just data. It's a neutral feedback mechanism showing you what you are currently vibrating. If you don't like the data on the screen, don't shoot the messenger. Change the signal.
I want to leave you with one final thought from the source material that really stopped me in my tracks. It loops back to the idea that everyone is a projection.
Right, the concept of you pushed out.
The source suggests that even the people you love and the people who annoy the hell out of you are just extras in your movie, reflecting parts of your own psyche.
It forces a radical level of compassion.
Because if everyone around you is actually you pushed out, who are you really talking to when you judge someone else?
You are judging yourself.
And who are you loving when you love someone else?
You're loving yourself.
That changes everything. It means every single interaction you have is just a conversation with a mirror.
It makes kindness a form of self-preservation. And judgment literally becomes an act of self-harm.
Heavy stuff, but also strangely beautiful.
Very beautiful.
All right, everyone, your assignment, should you choose to accept it, is to pay close attention to your film reel this week. When something annoying happens, don't yell at the screen. Stop and ask yourself what's happening in the projection booth.
And try not to think of a white cat.
Good luck with that. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.